What's up, guys? Triple Demon here. I'm at Ray Price of Fayetteville, Triumph Ducati, local dealership here in Fayetteville, and they have agreed to let me do some bike reviews. So here we are, the Monster 1200S. Beautiful, beautiful bike. 135 horsepower, believe about 80 foot-pounds of torque, traction control, ABS, Brembo brakes, single-sided swing arm, own suspension for the rear and for the front. Awesome little front light here. So, styling. My personal ratings. I'm going to be rating all these bikes, styling, handling, everything else. I'd say with the 1200S, Ducati has done very well. Styling is perfect. I'd say out of a 10 scale, I'd say this Ducati is definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. I happen to like these kind of bikes. They're pretty awesome. So, 10 out of 10. This bike was actually pretty anticipated by a lot of people. This is one of the first liquid-cooled monsters that's been made. So, let's hop on and see how it does. Alright, so I've had some time to play around with the Ducati and kind of learn how everything is. I have to say it's a great bike. It's very light, very nimble. Even though it's a 1200cc bike, it's freaking perfect. You don't notice any of the weight at all. I believe its wet weight, quoted by Ducati, is 461 pounds. And that's with all fluids, and I believe 90% of its full fuel weight. So it's definitely a heavy bike, but you just don't notice that weight at all. The weight is very evenly distributed. I don't notice it. I think you'll be hard pressed to find somebody that does. I can definitely say the throttle is a little bit snatchy, but it's nowhere near as bad as the smallest monster. So for those of you that has ridden the smallest monster they make, I believe it's the 636 or 696, I believe. Yeah, the throttle is a little bit the same, but not as bad. It's great. This engine just freaking purrs, if you guys can hear it. It's just perfect, guys. Everyone's going to know you're coming, and these are just the stock pipes. So imagine a set of aftermarket pipes. It'd be freaking great. I do have a couple of small minor complaints. There is no fuel gauge in this bike, so that's kind of you know, that's kind of a slap on the wrist to Ducati. Most bikes nowadays, they have fuel gauges, especially a bike this big from this kind of dealer. You kind of expect a fuel gauge. No gear indication, and that, I mean, honestly, you don't really need it. You know, me, I'm not doing 100% good because my bike has it, but, you know, if I ride this for a while, you know, I'll get used to the sound, and, you know, I'll know what's what. So that's not too bad. The mirrors, they are kind of hard to see. A little bit of adjustability. I'm sure, you know, if it was my bike and I was going to go start messing with stuff, first thing I'd probably change is the mirrors. But personally, I'm kind of partial to bar ends, and I think bar ends would look pretty nice on this bike. Um, that's really the only thing I can think of as far as, you know, as far as riding characteristics. One more. The bars are a little bit of vibration. It's really not that bad as long as you keep the revs, at a manageable level. So the only time you're going to really see that is if you're, I don't know, you're going out on a weekend ride, you're trying to hit up some twisties, and you're sitting there keeping it at red line or whatever. But they're not too bad, I'm sure. I definitely think this is more of a commuter slash, weekend warrior bike. If you're looking for something else to take really long trips often, maybe take a look at the Hyperstrada or the Tiger or something like that. But this, if that's what you want to do with this bike, that's not really something you can do off the shelf. I'm gonna buy it and take, a trip cross country North America. It's just not gonna happen. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could probably mess with it, but I personally don't see that happening right now. As is, out of the dealership. Throttle response is very, very quick. Like I was saying earlier, it's a little sensitive, but it's not too bad. What I really am happy about is the fact that the suspension is just so freaking nimble. But it's very soft, but not in a bad way. Not a bad soft as in like, oh, it's it's soft. There's a lot of diving when you do heavy braking, stuff like that. There is no diving at all. It's soft as in the ride's very comfortable. It's very plush, but there's not a lot of suspension travel. So it is very, very comfortable. The seat's really nice, and it's firm, but not too firm. So you're not going to sink into it, but it doesn't hurt. There's a lot of padding between you and the road, and it's not like a disconnected feeling. You feel very, very connected in your feet. You feel very connected in your hands, but your butt isn't just sitting there following every little bump and you're dying. So I really like that about the bike. Love this exhaust. It sounds beastly. It's nice and loud, and it's not annoying loud. There's no real drone. I think I could do this, as an everyday thing. I definitely think I could ride this bike as an everyday bike. No problem. That's exactly what this thing was meant for. And I'm just really amazed how crisp the gearbox is. Very crisp, very very specific. No false neutrals, no nothing. And I think it has a little bit to do with the way your feet sit. It has a mid-peg position, but they're slightly tilted forward. So, you kind of have that attack. You're slightly hunched forward, but not in an uncomfortable sport bike type hunch forward. It's still, a comfortable standard, but it's a little bit more aggressive than, like a little bit more aggressive than I'd say a street triple. A little bit more aggressive than that. But it's nice. It's very, very comfortable, very plushy bike. I could take this all day, freaking doing twisties, doing, everything under the sun, and I'd be having a great time. Great, great time. Oh, this is nice. Okay, wonderful surprise. So now it's in the touring mode, and I actually have a tachometer. So that's great. So urban riding, I think Ducati thinks that you're essentially, you don't really need to know what your revs are at. You just need to know your speed. You listen to the, the way the engine sounds, and you're good to go. And this one is actually, third gear, tons more power. But it's, like I said, it's still very manageable.
I'd say, you know, a complete beginner could probably jump on this as long as they have the right mindset and a little bit of natural talent and some skill. I really think a complete beginner can get on one of these bikes, especially in the touring mode. It's not as peaky as the urban, but it's definitely there. This is actually, I'd say this is probably my favorite mode. So, as you would think, touring mode doesn't really like these slow speeds too much. I would say it's not peaky or whatever, but it just seems like it just doesn't really like the way it is. It seems like it likes to be at a, you know, a decently split speed, you know. So let's see how it does on this little road over here I have. And this is in second gear. Second gear, and it's just taking these corners like a champ. Perfect bike. I honestly would say, as far as the riding experience on this bike, like, you know, the amount of power you have, you know, its stability, its nimbleness, you know, the suspension setup is very nimble, very nice. This is a perfect bike, guys. If you are looking for the best of both worlds, you want a leader bike with a decent amount of power, this is it. This is it. Now, the only other mode that we have left to try out is the sport mode. So let's go ahead and change that over here. So throttle, and now it's changed. Oh yeah, this is where it's at. Sport mode is great. Horsepower of the bike, still very manageable. Your inputs are very highly increased. I'm not even a quarter of a turn, and I'm getting all this power. So definitely, if you are a new guy and you're starting out on this bike, leave sport mode alone. Give yourself some time. You know, give yourself 3-4 months. Get used to the bike. Get used to everything else before you decide to hop on sport mode and see what that has to offer. I assure you, touring, everything else, you know, you'll be more than happy with all that. More than happy with all the other modes, all the power you can get. This is definitely a very impressive bike. We'll say sport mode makes you a little bit of a hooligan. With just having so much power on tap. Yeah, this sport mode is great, guys. It's really an amazing bike. You know, I'm just so surprised with it, and it's great that it's fully adjustable. Personally, I think the way it's set up right now, I'm not really 100% sure if it's stock. The guys at Ray Price really haven't messed with it at all for me. I just kind of picked it up and drove it off the lot. So it's really not dialed in for a particular setting. But if this is the stock setting, it works for me. I'm 5'5". I'm about 159 pounds, and this setup's perfect. Another thing I mentioned about the handlebars being full of vibrations and everything, that's very true for the urban mode, but as you get closer to sport, you go to the touring mode, the vibrations are a little bit less, and by the time you get to the sport mode, you know, it's perfect. There are no crazy vibrations or anything. The throttle does get a lot more snappy, but there's no problem because it's sport mode. You want that responsiveness. So when I said sport mode isn't something that's for beginners, it really is not. But that's the great thing about this bike. You have urban mode, you have touring mode. You know, if you just finished your MSF course and you want a nice bike and you don't want to buy that, that 250 or that 500 to learn on, you can buy this and you'll be fine. Like, no problem. You can really grow into this bike. This is a bike that I really think Ducati has really hit the mark. It gives everybody something. From, the new rider that, just walked off the street and was like, hey, I want to get on a bike and I want to get on it today, from the guy that's been riding 20, 30 years. Like, you will love this bike. But this bike is mainly for commuting. We can ride. I could definitely see a track day or two out of this bike. It just really is a great bike. You could probably do some light touring on it as well. But nothing too heavy. I wouldn't want to do like a long trip as is. I'm sure you could really, mess with the seat a little bit better, maybe change the controls up a little bit, maybe make it a little bit more comfortable. But as is, I really wouldn't want to do, multiple long trips on this thing. Maybe, down to Myrtle Beach, which is roughly 2-ish hours away. But this isn't something that I would get if I'm wanting to, ride across America. But it definitely is a great bike. It's definitely for that commuter who wants a little bit more. For those of you who has back problems and you want the power of a sport bike, but you don't want the position of a sport bike and the amount of, the pain that it takes to ride a sport bike. The back pain, the always being ready, always ready to go. You want something with that power and something that's comfortable. This is the bike to do it on. This is the perfect bike for you guys. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take this plaque to the dealer, and we will do a quick recap of my personal pros and cons. Alright, so my overall impressions of the Monster 1200S, out of a 10 scale, I would give it an 8 out of 10. And the only thing it loses points for are the instrument panel. A little bit hard to see it in the sun and whatnot. I'm sure it would look very, very beautiful, very, very nice in the dark. I mean, it's really a nice panel. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the fact that you just can't see it in the sun. The lack of the fuel gauge and gear indicator positions, at least that I've seen. The mirrors were a con. Not a real big fan of these kind of mirrors, but then again, most guys that get these bikes, they go for the bar end mirrors anyway. Let's just see a little bit better-ish, and it just looks cooler. And that's about it. The pros that I have, the engine is great, the suspension is great, the seat's great, looks great. And really, I couldn't see anything wrong with this bike. Really, this is a bike that anyone can grow into. You can be a guy fresh off the street with enough maturity and everything else. You can buy this, and it will literally be the only bike you would really ever need. This is mainly for the commuter / weekend warrior. Is it a full track day bike? No, it's not something you can, take and make it to a full-on track day bike. It doesn't have the fairings or whatever, so you're probably going to be at a disadvantage as far as the other, super bikes out there. Something like the Panigale,
or like an R1 or something like that, you're probably going to be at a slight disadvantage just because you don't have those fairings to cover you. But I mean, you could definitely do the occasional track day. It's a very good all-around bike, a little bit of touring, but this isn't like cruisers type touring. You're definitely not going to want to be too long in the seat with this bike. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys later. As always, comment, like, subscribe. Check out the Facebook. Peace out.
Like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah. Right.
Luckily 5 wins 4, clear to drop.
6-5, roger.